Pandita Samadarshinaha. Okay, word to word meanings. Vidya, with education. Vinaya, and gentleness. Sampanne, Hastini, in the elephant. Shuni, in the dog. Ta, and. Eva, certainly. Shopake, in the dog eater, the outcast. Cha, respectively. Panditaha, those who are wise. Samadarshinaha, who see with equal vision. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. Purport. A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from a social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord by his plenary portion as Paramatma is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As the bodies are concerned in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and the body of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the super souls within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and the super soul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the super soul is conscious of all bodies. The super soul is present in all bodies without distinction. I'll say a few prayers now, then we can begin this discussion. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे विद्या विनय संपन्ने ब्राह्मणे गवि हस्तिनि सुनी चैव सुपाके च पंडिता समदर्शिनः. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, the outcast. So, continuing the subject matter that Krishna is speaking of in the prior two verses, right? The prior two verses, we saw how knowledge gives vision In fact, without knowledge, one does not have true vision. If the simple example is that if one with knowledge looks at a car, he knows that even though he doesn't see a gasoline tank, he knows that the car runs on gasoline. Now you can run on electricity too. Yeah. So, anyways, he knows that it's on one of these things. He doesn't think that the car is running nicely because the sun is shining, or the wind is blowing or something like this. Because he has some knowledge, and that knowledge gives actual insight. It gives actual vision into the nature. You may see something, different people see something. But the other day one of our devotees had their car pulled in, and as they parked, two perfect plumes of smoke comes out of the hood. And that devotee just brushed it away, saying that it's just some steam, and I guess some water got into the engine. I don't know about that. When I look at it, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't look like just steam. It looks like something else is like really wrong. He's like, well, there's no check engine light. I don't know, bro. It's like maybe something's up with your car, So now if I were a car mechanic and I saw that, I probably could know just by looking at the nature of the smoke, or what color it is, or whatever it is. It's probably, I would know what the problem is, or I could at least say that there's something really wrong here. It could be this, or this. But when a person like him argues, well, it's just steam, I can't even explain to them that I don't think it looks exactly like steam, because I don't think, steam looks a little different than smoke. You can't discuss much because you don't have knowledge, So this is the nature of knowledge, that knowledge actually gives proper vision. And in the previous two verses, this is what Krishna is stating. He says that however one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in daytime. So it's a really nice example. Just as the sun lights up everything in daytime, knowledge illuminates. Knowledge is illuminating. And historically, that's why so many people are after knowledge. Although there's always a group of people who say, all you need to do is just drink and party. There's always people in this world who are seeking knowledge. Now, the knowledge that we're discussing about is not just knowledge of how the material world functions, but Krishna says in text 17, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of all misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. That real knowledge destroys all kinds of ignorance. It destroys all the misgivings in one's heart. There is no room for vagueness, darkness, confusion, and consequently, there is no room for anxiety or stress or depression when one is enlightened with transcendental knowledge. Which means here, Krishna is stating, when intelligence, mind, faith, and refuse are all fixed in the Supreme, which means one understands the Supreme. One understands who one is, one understands who God is, one understands the nature of this world. When one understands these things, then what happens? Just as we spoke previously, one's vision changes. And that's where we come to this verse, that in text 18, the humble sages by the virtue of true knowledge, they have true knowledge. They see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. Why are so many variations described? Why are so many things described? It could just be said it sees everyone. But this verse has two aspects to it. One aspect is that there is equal vision of all these differences, of all these different personalities. The other side is that there are differences in this world. That that that's why the title of this class is Equal Vision in a World of Inequality. Means that actually this is a world of inequality. That if you that this world by default, right, is unequal. It's kind of like it's like that by design. How do you know that it's like that by design? Go to the animal kingdom. You won't find equality. You won't find equality. You'll start finding, if you take a pack of hyenas, there'll be one head honcho who's like bossing around everybody else. Or you take a herd of elephants, same thing. You take so and okay, even among a certain species, even if like just look at ants. There's the queen ant, and she does nothing, and all she does is she just sits there, eats, and reproduces. And all these worker ants are, they go around for, collecting, foodstuffs and making that queen ant really fat. And when the queen ant dies, what do the worker ants do? Huh? No. What I heard is that they basically kill themselves. They commit suicide. I guess in different ant species there's different like mechanisms, I'm assuming. And that's what I heard. I thought I learned biology well. Anyways, I've heard that the worker ants, they commit suicide. They're so depressed, they don't know how to live anymore, so they kill themselves because they don't have any purpose to their life anymore. That their whole purpose in life was to give food to this queen ant, and all she does, that's feminism. It's up there. So they achieved it. The ants already figured it out. So anyways, the point is, this is a world of inequality. That even if among a particular species, things looked good, there was always another species to kind of like dominate them or eat them up and do this kind of like stuff, because that's how the food chain works. That one in the Vedas it's stated, jivo jivasya jivanam. One living entity is food for another living entity. That's just how it works. And so this is a world of inequality. And in that inequality over here, you have a broad spectrum. So the first thing that's mentioned is a learned and gentle brahmana. You have a brahmana. A brahmana is like the epitome of human behavior. Like he's very gentle, he's very learned, he's very cultured, very civilized. Is quite selfless, very simple, truthful in behavior. There's like so many characteristics of a brahmana that Krishna will describe later in Bhagavad Gita. And each and every one of those characteristics are in so many ways what people desire in this world. So you have a brahmana. And then on the other hand, you have a dog eater, which is like the dog eater is mentioned after the dog. Because a dog eater, even a dog is not, in many ways, a dog is desirable. Or a dog eater is somebody like it's like really off on the extreme. Nobody will like, you you eat dogs? It's like, what kind of like a species? What are you? It's like it's very abominable. So you have a learned brahmana on one hand, and you have a dog eater on the other, and now you have few animals that are mentioned in between. The animals that are mentioned in between are a cow, an elephant, and a dog. Why cow, elephant, and dog? So a cow is considered holy. In Vedic text, the cow is the holiest of all animals. And there are multiple reasons for that. But the main reason is the cow is our mother. That we drink her milk, just as when we're born, we are breastfed by our mother, and so the mother is the. So for that reason, we should always respect the cow as a mother. And you don't kill your mother. If you're civilized, you don't kill your mother. So therefore, a cow is not meant to be killed. That the cow produces a lot more milk than required for its calf. Um, if one is wondering how that is possible, if you actually look at studies of protected cows, not the cow, not what's going on today. What's going on today is horrific in the dairy industry. It's very it's very painful. But protected cows, and those who own protected cows will realize how much the cow has a feeling of being in a family. My grandmother used to state how and cows have feelings too. Um, there used to be a cow that used to come to her house. In India, you have cows roaming around the streets, and in back in the early 1900s, cows were not mistreated, and cows did not eat junk and garbage like they do nowadays, because there wasn't junk and garbage. India was not industrialized. For most parts of India, there was not even any electricity. So what to speak of industrialization? Plastic didn't exist. You don't have plastic, most of your junk doesn't exist. You don't have plastic, most likely you don't have trash, right? So in those days, cows used to roam around, and they used to eat, mostly organic refuse that was left here and there or whatever. Or they would go to houses and people would feed them something. And there used to be a cow who used to come to my grandmother's house, and every time, exactly at the same time of the day, it was as if the cow had a clock, every time exactly at the same time. And then one time, my grandmother's mother, my great grandmother, she was upset about something else, and she came in front of the cow and yelled at the cow. And ever since then, the cow stopped coming. Just stopped coming. Just would never come back again. And you can, if you talk to real cow owners, you'll understand how those cows that are native breeds, some of the more native breeds, they're actually they're very personable, right? A cow's udders is like the women's breasts, which is not something that the cow wants anybody and everybody touching. The cow will only allow, the caretaker or the owner, or in this case, the cow herd family, to approach it. Otherwise, it becomes very aggressive. And in this way, cows have a lot of refined feelings. They have many refined feelings. And apart from that, those who are knowledgeable in Ayurveda will also know that cow dung is great manure. I mean, not just fertilizer, but cow dung is also used to produce many types of valuable medicines, along with cow urine, believe it or not. Cow urine is extremely antiseptic. In India, traditionally, they would take cow dung and mix it with water and sprinkle it in front of the house. What it would do is it would actually prevent insects from entering. You're in a tropical country, you have a lot of insects and bugs. So they all crawl into the house, but they won't crawl into the house if you smear cow dung in the front. And in this way, there were many things that were followed in the days. And a cow after its death, its skin produces leather, which is another extremely valuable commodity. And in this way, a cow is a sacred animal. Apart from that, the Vedas say that all the demigods are situated in a cow, which means that when one worships the cow, one worships all the demigods. And Krishna is called Govinda. He's called Govinda because he is the protector of the cows. So Krishna himself herded cows. So you have the cow, which is a very sacred animal, and then you have an elephant. Elephant Elephant is a large animal. It's a big animal. So here, in terms of, in terms of differences that are being described over here, so the first one is knowledge, culture, civilization, stature in society. So Brahmana is stature, highest stature. Cow considered very useful, very, therefore very sacred, very holy. And then you have the elephant, which just physical size. I mean, if an elephant were to come here, many people will go and look at, oh, look at that elephant, because the elephant, even when you go to a zoo, there's some boring animals and some more interesting animals, and generally the elephant falls in the more interesting category because it's just so huge, such a big thing, and so you have the elephant, and then you have a dog. A dog. Um, so a dog is, again, for many people, a dog is a favorite animal. A dog is also, in many cases, it's there for protection. But also in Vedic society, a dog is considered impure. In Vedic society, a dog is considered impure compared to a cow. So a dog is considered to be a more lower species of life. And then you have a dog eater. So you have all of this, and the sage sees all of this equally. So that's why Krishna is presenting this spectrum over here. So getting into the purport, a Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or caste. The Brahmana or outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species, but these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. So the point here is that a learned transcendentalist sees the actual source of life within each and every one of these different categories of life. That the source of life is the spirit soul. And along with the spirit soul, the super soul is also existing within everyone's heart. And this super soul is present everywhere, in everything. And the learned transcendentalist sees this. He doesn't just see an elephant. He doesn't just see a cow. He doesn't just see a dog eater. But he sees that inside this is actually the super soul is present. And the spirit soul, the living entity, who we are, is also present. And in this way, he sees the common thread. The common thread. And why is this important? Why is this important? Because without this, one has not achieved any real knowledge. There's a nice story in this regard. So Adi Shankara, when Adi Shankara is one of the ancient acharyas. They're one of the teachers who appeared in India a long time ago, in the somewhere around 1000 AD, I believe, and or maybe even before that, 700 AD. Yeah. So Adi Shankaracharya basically established the supremacy of the Vedas, and through philosophical debate, he drove out Buddhism out of India. Buddhism was born in India. Buddhism, Gautama Buddha, the incarnation of Lord Buddha, appeared in India. And Bodh Gaya is the famous tree under, you find that tree under where Buddha meditated and attained enlightenment. Now, however, from a Vedic standpoint, Buddhism does not explain, for instance, even the existence of the soul or the super soul. In Buddhism, you don't speak about God. God is not in discussion with Buddhism, because Buddhism is voidism, that this whole world is void, and that the solution for everything is nirvana, which is basically void. That's basically Buddhism. Now, Adi Shankara, on the strength of the Vedas, philosophically drove out Buddhism out of India into the Far East, where Buddhism took shelter, such as China, Tibet, right across the Himalayas. This send them on the other side of the Himalayas, and then to the further east, such as Thailand and other places, um, and also south of India, Sri Lanka. So you'll find Buddhism was kind of it took shelter away. So Adi Shankara was a great transcendentalist himself, and once when he was walking on the street, there was this, dirty outcast, standing in front of him. And Adi Shankara is walking on the street. And he tells this, dirty outcast, this dirty, low caste member who's like looking very dirty and, wearing torn clothes and and he says, "Move." And immediately that beggar replies to Adi Shankara, "O learned sage, who are you asking to move? My body or my soul?" Immediately Adi Shankara becomes like shocked. He's like, "Who are you? You've put on some guise, looking like a beggar. But who are you?" And anyways, it turns out that is Lord Shiva, who appears in the form of that beggar. And there's a whole story of this Adi Shankara. But the point is, you identify a person. How do you identify a fool? No. When they open their mouth. The moment a person opens their mouth, you know whether he's a learned person or a fool. Until they open a mouth, anybody can dress. You could dress in a coat and suit, or you could dress like a ragtag beggar. But the moment you open your mouth, you reveal what you actually know. So Adi Shankara could immediately recognize that here is a learned person. The point is that as a learned transcendentalist, Adi Shankara kind of, it was kind of like a test, to Adi Shankara, is like, who are you asking to move, the body or the soul? So the point here is that one who is learned, who is a transcendentalist, he sees equality in the core principle of life. What is the core principle of life? The core principle that sustains all of our lives is the super soul. The super soul sustains everything. The super soul is the central principle in this universe. And this universe is sustained by the super soul. And that super soul is present in every single atom. Forget in every single living entity. It's present in every single atom. Then why is only living entities mentioned here? Because in living entities, you not only have the super soul, you also have the spirit soul, which is us. So we exist along with the super soul in the heart of this body. And the transcendentalist sees that. And because he sees that, he doesn't make a distinction on that transcendental platform. Okay, such an understanding of the Supreme is real. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. How do you know that the Supreme Lord treats everyone equally when there's so much inequality in this world? Right? This is another huge theological question that's generally like, if God is equal, if God is kind, why is there so much inequality in this world? And that's the truth. I mean, it's not like, some people, they take the point of vision too far. What is the point of vision too far? Basically, they start coming up with theories like we're just living in some simulation. You go look at Google YouTube videos. We are living in a simulation. You'll get tons of them. Because there are people who will start speaking things as to making you doubt whether you exist at all. Like, actually, you're some character in some video game of some guy, some some person in another alternate dimension. Or then they come up with different ideas like, actually, there's multiple dimensions and I exist in a different dimension and I in a different dimension am doing something else and all this kind of crazy stuff. So all this nonsense can be solved by giving yourself a tight slap on the face. If you give yourself a tight slap on the face, you'll understand reality. Because you know what? You actually exist. You exist, and what you would like to kind of explain away as if it doesn't exist also exists. Like we don't like the inequality that's present in this world, and we try to explain it away with all these ridiculous ideas, but the truth is there is inequality in this world. But if there is inequality in this world, how do you explain that God is equal and kind to everyone? Or here he's the friend of everyone. Generally you expect, if you're a friend, you're equal to all your friends. You call all your friends for dinner, and it's not that you give one guy a cheesecake and you give some other, you give some other guy, some water. That's all you get, sparkling water. No, you're expected to treat. So how do you understand that? The equality is of two kinds. First of all, the Supreme Lord, as the super soul, accompanies the living entity in every species of life. You see, even we, how much ever you even though you may become very spiritual and this and that, still, when you look at a worm crawling out of a vegetable, or you look at a spider, you start to get a little creepy, or if a roach is walking around the floor, you're not like, oh, wonderful roach, how beautiful you are, and you don't start singing poems, But the super soul is present. The super soul is there with that living entity in that abominable species of life. And Vedic texts explain that those lower species of life, they actually suffer a lot. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of fear, and their existence is not pleasurable. There's a lot less freedom that these living entities have in those species of life. There is very little sense of perception as you go further and further lower. For instance, plants, they don't have the ability to protest. They don't have, they kind of like so slowly, they protest in a very feeble way. They don't have the ability to react quickly. Their reaction is very slow. It's very stymied. The existence is very stymied. The plant, for an uneducated eye, the plant is just there, just like the rock, or the stone. The stone is there and the plant is there. And if you just look at them for 5 minutes, they kind of just they both just stationary, motionless. But so the plant form of life is almost like that of a stone, which is practically it doesn't have life. So the tree or the plant is just about death, just bare. It is living, it has life, but it's just about not living. So, and then as the species advance further and further, there's a hierarchy given in the Vedic text. There's more and more ability for the species to express themselves in different ways. There's more emotional characteristics, there's more intelligence, there's more perception, there's more desires. So like this, and the human form of life among all the species is the highest. And among humans, there are 400,000 varieties of human species. So that's another subject matter. Now, the Paramatma, the super soul, Krishna, is present in each and every one of these species. He does not distinguish. He does not say, oh, this soul has gotten birth in this abominable species, I will not be with him over there. No. The Paramatma is present over there. And it is the Paramatma who sanctions that living entity's desires. He sanctions that desire. He sanctions their ability, and he is there as the witness. And in that way, he knows everything. He knows everything about us. He knows all our fears. He knows all our desires. He knows all our convictions. He knows all our doubts. And in this way, he is present. He's as a witness to our basically our sojourn within this world in lifetime after lifetime. So, and how is he equal? Through the process of karma. This is how karma works. That actually, if you don't, and as I was discussing with Jitta Girish Prabhu was mentioning about how they, in their philosophical classes, you have the problem of I think he was saying inequality. I don't remember, but he said that if you don't, that only Eastern philosophies which have an understanding of karma and reincarnation can explain variety in this world. Otherwise, you cannot explain variety in this world. If you don't accept karma or reincarnation, there is no way in which you can explain all the inequalities in this world. There's no other way you can explain. And inequality exists. It's there by design. But how is it there by design? It is there through the laws of karma. It is there through the process of reincarnation. And these are set laws. These laws are applied equally. The laws are applied equally. The reaction of the law is different. See, just because justice is served equally doesn't mean the result of justice is equal. The result of justice is based upon one's actions. If somebody is a murderer, equal justice means to punish that, to give him some sort of punishment, to put some kind of restraint. And equal justice also means that if somebody is innocent, they should be treated in that way. They should not be convicted for something that they never did. This is called equal justice. It doesn't mean the results are the same. The results can be different. So, in this way, by the agency of karma, the super soul is equal to all living entities, and he's a friend. And see, and this is the difference. How is he a friend? In spite of meting out the justice required and giving those living entities, depending upon their karma, either a lower species of life or a higher species of life, he still accompanies them. He still accompanies them. He does not leave them. He doesn't leave them. The super soul is present with each and every living entity. The super soul is present within our heart. How close is God to us? Well, he's right there in your heart. He's right there with us. This is how close Krishna is with us. And that's why of all the people who love us, we may think, so many people, that could be one's partner, one's parents, one's children, one's friends, etc., etc. Krishna loves us the most. Even more than all these demigods that we may have been attached to. Even that includes Shiva, Durga, Ganesh, and all these other different demigods who people of Vedic culture, they like to worship. None of them accompany the living entity in their sojourn in the material world. Only Paramatma, Vishnu, Krishna, he accompanies. Therefore, he says, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. Therefore, I am the friend of all living entities. And by knowing me, Nyatva Mam Shantim Richati, that by knowing me, one can become peaceful. One becomes peaceful. So, as far as the body, so that's what Prabhupada is stating here, that as far as these different bodies are concerned, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entity. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and that of the outcast are not the same. So this is an important point, that the bodies are not the same. The bodies will not be the same. You cannot make the bodies same. It is not possible to make the body same. What does that mean? That means that even in a spiritual society, we must respect and accommodate these. It's not that just because one is spiritual, one takes a broad brush and just rubs everybody with the same thing, like, okay, we're all spiritual, so we should all like whatever, let's say we should all like what vegetable, all of you should like potato. Now if you don't like potato, you're not spiritual. We're all equal. Or they try to force a sense of artificial equality. That sense of forcing artificial equality means that one does not recognize that the bodies are different. What does that mean? That means that even though the bodies are different, everybody has equal opportunity to progress in spiritual life. Everybody can progress in spiritual life. Everybody can take to spiritual life. And everybody should be treated in a manner that is beneficial to their soul. For instance, it doesn't mean that somebody who is not trained, somebody who is, for instance, there is a difference between a teacher like Srila Prabhupada and somebody who is just coming, who is just learning Bhagavad Gita right now. Who do you take more seriously? You would take an acharya or a teacher like Srila Prabhupada, their conclusions more seriously. Why? Because they're learned. They have attained that stage of perfection. Now, at the same time, the Paramatma present in the soul, along with the soul of Srila Prabhupada in his body, is present along with the soul of that particular new person who's coming too. So in that sense, there is actually equality. There is equality. But at the same time, there is a little difference over here. But what is that difference? That difference is only in terms of spiritual advancement. And how do you treat this newcomer? You help him in a manner that will help. You will treat him in a manner that will help him or her progress in Krishna consciousness. Now, that doesn't mean that when you help them to progress in Krishna consciousness, it doesn't mean that, for instance, if they're new and they like a particular item, right? So if somebody comes here, I know some people, they like, let's think of some food stuff, sweet rice. Sweet rice is a very nice preparation that we serve here, at our Sunday feast sometimes, and it's a very delicious preparation. People like it, and if you know that person likes it, if that prasadam is available, you'll go and give it to them. Or if they speak a particular language and you know that particular language, you're going to communicate in that particular language to them. But what is your purpose of communicating in that particular language? The purpose of communicating in that particular language is to address their soul. And in that platform, you are seeing everybody equal. Equality doesn't mean, equal vision doesn't mean negation of differences. This is a very important point to understand. Nowadays, there is in society, there is artificial negation of differences. And this artificial negation of differences actually frustrates society. Because what happens is everybody starts stepping all over each other in the name of equality. And equality you don't achieve equality. And it's basically, and this is the whole problem in society, that that as long as the vision is not based on the soul and the vision is based on the body, any attempt for equality will always fail, because that equality on the body platform doesn't exist. The body of a brahmana and that of an outcast are different. They are different. But does that mean an outcast cannot rise to the position of a brahmana? They can. But they need to develop the qualities and characteristics. And to develop those qualities and characteristics, facility should be given. That facility should be given. But still, to engage or to to achieve the position of a Brahmana, to be taken seriously in society, one has to qualify oneself. I remember when I was, in India, because of this, because of centuries of abuse of the caste system, you know, sometimes we're often misunderstood in India. So once I was distributing books in India, it's like probably like 9 years ago. And I remember, a guy came up to me and he said, you're all trying to implement the caste system and destroy equality. We have finally achieved independence, and we oppressed castes are finally free, and you guys are trying to bring that all back and oppress us back again. I said, what sort of nonsense are you talking? Where is that nonsense? He said, that book, Bhagavad Gita. I said, where is it stated in Bhagavad Gita? He said, no, and Bhagavad Gita speaks of the caste system. And then, but it also speaks of this verse. It also speaks of this verse. He says, oh, so if I want to become a Brahmin, will you make me a Brahmin? Yeah, you can become a Brahmin. And he didn't know what to say. And he was like, what? You're telling me you're lying. I was like, what's wrong with you? If you want, come, I'll tell you how you can become a Brahmin. You can also become a Brahmana, but you have to qualify yourself. You have to be desirous. The point is, in Vedic culture, we have to understand that whether it is species of life or whether it is positions of human society, different castes and things like that, they're all based on quality. They're all based on quality of a particular living entity. And based on that quality, based on the inclinations of that living entity, they are categorized. But this Bhagavad Gita also teaches us that those qualities that the living entity exhibits when embodied in a particular species is actually external to the soul. It's all external. Somebody's behaving like an outcast. Somebody's a dog eater and he's eating dogs and it's really nasty, gross. But actually, from a spiritual perspective, that dog-eating characteristic of that outcast is external to the soul. It has nothing to do with his actual spirit soul, which is actually pure. That spirit soul has been covered with ignorance, and in this particular lifetime, that particular conditioned living entity is exhibiting the abominable characteristic of eating a dog. So, a learned sage and transcendentalist actually takes compassion upon all these living entities. That he understands that even though one may be a learned and very cultured Brahmana, if he is lacking transcendental knowledge, if he is lacking Krishna consciousness, it's just another form of covering. That it's just another covering in this material world. It's another material covering. Sure, among these material coverings, that covering is said to be higher than this covering of eating a dog. But still it is a covering, nonetheless. And that underneath that covering, you have the living entity and the super soul present. And so a devotee who is Krishna conscious is interested in every living entity uncovering whatever covering that is and revealing its true spiritual nature, which is actually to be a servant of Krishna, which is actually to be a part and parcel of Krishna. And that is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. That is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. And in this way, a devotee actually treats all living entities equally. Because his interaction with any living entity, like one devotee was telling me how, they like to feed squirrels. So what they do is they take nuts, and they feed the squirrels. But what do they do before they take those nuts to the squirrels? They offer them to Krishna. Now, the squirrel cannot sit through a Bhagavad Gita class like this. This is where a learned transcendentalist sees the difference. That the body is there. Oh, no. Everybody should hear Bhagavad Gita. Make all the squirrels sit here. They won't sit. That's a fool. You can't broad brush equality. In the name of equality, this is ignorance. I'm giving an extreme example because this is what's going on in society today. This is what's going on in human society today, and this is a form of ignorance. So the the, the devotee offers the, that boga, the nuts, nice pistachios and cashews and things like this, you know, and gives the squirrel a treat. And then, and then he keeps them underneath the tree. They come down, and then they play around for a little bit, and then they stop. And, they poke at it a little bit, and then they realize, well, it's actually true. We actually hit jackpot today. And then they go and gather and they take it all. So, but what is the benefit to that squirrel? That squirrel is thinking that it's just eating some nuts. But actually, the learned devotee knows that because that squirrel ate the prasadam of the Lord, that he ate what was offered to the Lord. That squirrel, because it ate what was offered to the Lord, that squirrel is going to get a human form of life. It is now not going to have to go through the whole cycle of species to arise up to the human form of life. Its next life is a human form of life where it gets a chance to hear Bhagavad Gita. It will get a chance to hear Bhagavad Gita. And same thing, sometimes, we try to discuss philosophy with some people. They just can't get it. They keep talking about this alternate dimension and how they exist, and how now they're moving their right hand, but in the alternate universe, that left hand is moving, and it's like, it's like, why are you like this? It's like, Krishna, please bless this person, But so then what we do is, okay, you're very intelligent, you're very smart, please take this plate of prasadam. We love you, and we do love them. We're not being, we love them, therefore we give them prasadam. Or we tell somebody, sometimes we meet like some hardcore, hardcore Christians, like, you're going to hell and this and that. And then we ask them, so what's your name? David. You know what's my name? Gauranga. What did you say? Gauranga. Can you say that again? Gauranga. Okay, thank you very much. You have a good day. Because you made them chant the holy name of God. You made them chant the holy name of Krishna. That they have chanted, whether they know it or not. But we know that Paramatma is situated within their heart and has taken note. Okay, he has chanted my holy name. In this life form, he's too puffed up. But I'll get him next lifetime. Or maybe in this lifetime also. You never know how it works. But the point is, we benefit them. This process of Krishna consciousness that Lord Chaitanya came to give, whose appearance we celebrated last week, Lord Chaitanya's movement is a movement of love and mercy. And this love and mercy, it has such great potential that it destroys the demoniac mentality of all living entities in this world. And that is the beauty of this process. And that application of Sankirtan is universal. We don't distinguish. No. The Chinese don't like Sankirtan, and maybe the Turks like Sankirtan more. No, we will do Sankirtan everywhere. Sankirtan is of three forms. Harinam, we chant the holy name. We sing and chant the holy name in public, and that holy name vibrates, and every living entity that hears the holy name is benefited. Sankirtan is of book distribution. That's the second form. Where we're distributing these books. These books can cause a revolution in each and every person's lives and in human society in general, because it contains knowledge that cannot be found in all of the major libraries in this world. That all of that, even if all that, actually there's this quote of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that, again, my memory is fuzzy. I think so. If there's a if all the literature in this world are destroyed and only the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is that what Bhaktisiddhanta said? I don't remember. Somebody can remind me. But anyways, in this regard, that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said something to the effect that even if all the literatures of this world are lost, and just the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, you find it there. So basically, you have Bhagavad Gita, which is undergraduate study. Then you have postgraduate study, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the 18-volume set. So what is explained as principles in Bhagavad Gita in 700 verses is elaborated upon in 18,000 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then from the Srimad Bhagavatam, you have the doctorate level study, which is the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which explains how the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are being spread in today's day and age, and how they are applicable to each and every one of our lives, and how this is all the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that even if just the Chaitanya Charitamrita was remaining, all knowledge in this world can be revived from that one book. Just from that one book. Every single facet of knowledge in this world that actually is relevant can be revived, and human society can be saved. So this is the importance of this knowledge. So you have book distribution, and then you have prasadam. Prasadam is the third form of sankirtan. So in the, and you can and in each of these ways, all living entities are benefited. All living entities are benefited. And this Sankirtan is given without discrimination, is spread without discrimination. Anybody who thinks that one must discriminate when it comes to Sankirtan is in ignorance. So this Sankirtan movement must be spread for the benefit of all living entities in this world. And so therefore, Prabhupada, he concludes here that the bodies are material productions of the different modes of material nature, but the soul and the super soul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. So these bodies are produced because of different permutations and combinations of material nature. You have you have different material elements, and you have the different modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance, and different combination of species. Some species are more in the mode of ignorance, some species more in the mode of passion, other species more in the mode of goodness. And permutations and combinations of this, you can consider it like three ropes. That's how it's explained. So you have three ropes that are intertwined. And depending on the thickness of the three ropes, you have different species of life. And in that way, the Vedas describe that there are 8.4 million species of life, categories of life within this universe. But the soul and the super soul within each of those species are of the same spiritual quality. We and Krishna are of the same spiritual quality. Therefore we have a relationship with him. Therefore we are hearing about him. Therefore we are speaking about him. And in this human form of life, we have this opportunity to understand our relationship with Krishna. This is our opportunity in this human form of life. Only in this human form of life can we understand. And so the similarity in the quality of the soul and the super soul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas Paramatma is present in each and every body. So although we and Krishna, God, so the soul and the super soul are of the same spiritual quality, we're only present in our body. We're not present in other bodies. For instance, I may understand that I have some pain in my body, but if somebody else in this room has pain in their body, I may not understand it unless they express it in some way, shape, or form. Until that point of time, I do not know. I do not know what's in each and everyone's heart. I do not know how much money is in the wallets of each and every person in this room. But the super soul knows. The super soul knows all these things. That is the difference between the soul and the super soul. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he's truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristics of the soul and the super soul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. So we are conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the super soul is conscious of all bodies. The super soul is present in all bodies without distinction. Hare Krishna. So I'll end my class here. Could the mic go around? And Also, please pass the beads. Um, so if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to ask or state. Any questions or comments? Um, Anybody? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Um, so you said Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities.
Mm.
If we're striving to become more Krishna conscious in our efforts, how do we apply that to people that we know are doing abominable things such as the dog eater, rapists, murderers and stuff like that? Like, are we supposed to have empathy for them? Or I mean, like, how do we know that people are doing these cruel things and still try to see them equal to people
Yeah,
who
and
are
it's
not?
it's tough. It's very difficult, is it not? And it's that's it's true. When you see someone who's visibly evil, right? Openly, obnoxiously, unabashedly, right? They're not even ashamed of it. Like they flaunt it around, and it becomes very difficult. Um, Still, we have to understand that if that person is not Krishna conscious, they need mercy too. Now, that's why I want to state that even though one may be Krishna conscious, one is not artificially equal. Like you don't like if somebody has a history of say child abuse, right? You have to keep them away from children. You don't expose, you don't create vulnerability. You shouldn't if you have some knowledge, you know? Now, at the same time, we have to understand that even while trying to implement these important, um, conditions, we have to understand that we also should create facility for them to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, because that is the ultimate only hope of reformation. That ultimately, even if they were to reform to to just what is called a normal person, from a Krishna conscious perspective, you understand that while yes, a normal person is less of a, definitely is not a disturbance like this whatever rapist, abuser, whatever this kind of person is, um, um, or a thief or whatever. Like if there's somebody has history of stealing, you have to be wary of that. If you know you're around them, you have to be cautious. Um, there's because some people, even if they realize and they feel bad about stealing, they may still be in the habit of stealing because it's just like it's just second nature to them. Steal, they can't help it. um there's there's a story in this regard of so Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, again, in his story, he says, so there was once, a thief who realized, and he's like, he wants to go on pilgrimage. So he's going with a group of people. Now he's a thief, but he's going on pilgrimage. So he's got to be like, he's got to be like saintly, right? He's going on pilgrimage. If he wants to achieve what he wants, like he's making some prayer or something, if he steals, he knows that, well, I'm probably not going to achieve anything. So I have to perform some penance, some austerity, and part of that is like I got to stop stealing, at least for the duration of this pilgrimage. So he's going on this pilgrimage, and so all the pilgrims, they rest at a place at night. Now, if you go on pilgrimage in India even today, people go in big groups, and then you just like it's a big hall like this, and everybody has like sleeping places. They have like mattresses or sleeping whatever things to sleep on. They have pillows, and they just place their belongings, and everybody sleeps here. So all generally what happens is all the males sleep in one room and all the females sleep in another room, because they're traveling. And you know in the good old days, you would travel by foot, in pilgrim. And when you travel on foot, you like going in a group because it's safer, right? It's safer. You're passing through jungles and this and that, but you're going on pilgrimage. But this thief has a habit of stealing. So at night, he's like, his hands are like, you got to steal, you got to do something. So what he does, he takes all the people's, you know. So then, anyways, the story, what happens is the next day morning, everybody's finding their belongings missing. They're seeing something else. But then, and then they're all frantically looking, but there's belongings in the room. And then this thief gets up and says, "Oh, all my beloved, fellow pilgrims, I ask forgiveness from all of you. You see, I'm actually a thief, but I'm trying not to steal, but I'm in the habit of stealing. So what I just did is I didn't really steal anything. I just moved all your belongings all around the room. So it's actually here, but it's moved around everywhere. So in that way, I kind of pacified myself, you know. So it's like a funny story. But the point is, here is that these habits, old habits die hard, they say, right? And sometimes when these old habits are obnoxious, even if somebody repents them and wants to change, it takes a lot of effort. So, but the strength to reform can come from Krishna consciousness, and it actually only will come from Krishna consciousness. Everything else is just external and superficial. This is the actual transformation of the soul. Therefore, there has to be that facility. But how that facility is provided in a manner that doesn't, cause vulnerability to innocent people is what one has to learn from by speaking with senior devotees. One also refers to one's by talking to senior devotees, by speaking in the association devotees, and by seeing the example of other great saintly people, of our previous acharyas. In this way one can understand. So in this case, we have to understand that the least we can always do is, everybody needs food and everybody should get prasadam. Everybody can be asked to chant the holy name, whether they like it or not. One can request, but if they don't take it up, it's up to them. But giving prasadam is generally a very easy thing to do. And so depending on how much one is able to preach to them, in some cases you can't preach. In some cases you want to preach, but you can't preach. In some cases you can preach, but you're just you're too taken aback. But at the same time, we must be at least compassionate enough to give people prasadam, or make them say the holy name, make them chant the holy name, give them some benefit. So this is how we apply these things in Krishna consciousness. We understand that we're not the Supreme Lord, right? We cannot create facility for everybody. For every single situation and circumstance, we might not be able to do so, because we always have to consider the greater good. That's how it is in society. You have to consider the greater good. So when you have to consider the greater good, few exclusions may need to be made. But at the same time, it is not that those who, if they're very serious, those people who are unfortunately for whatever reason you can't just make them mingle freely with the rest, they still can take up and practice Krishna consciousness. This is a long-term effort, and it requires a collective effort in society. But that effort will not happen as long as people are still stuck in the bodily concept of life. A lot of these things, see, just like there's a lot of discussions in society today about how crime should be dealt with, how criminals should be dealt with, how children should be dealt with, so many things, so many conversations that people are having. Unfortunately, all these conversations are happening on the bodily platform. Now, we are attempting to create a spiritual revolution society where people start looking at things from the spiritual platform. And then at that point of time, the same discussions will need to happen. And again, the good thing about these discussions is that in Vedic texts, in Shastra, there is so much guidance available. And it requires devotees to read these things, learn from them, apply them into modern times. It requires scholars. There's a lot of effort. And this is a bigger part of the Krishna consciousness movement. The principles are what we are reading here. But every detail you will not find in the books. You cannot find. So that's where it is said, Mahajano yena gata sapantha, that one has to follow in the footsteps of the great learned devotees in the past. But the least we can do is make them chant the holy name and give them prasadam. And you can even give them some books. Maybe they'll take, we have a whole prison ministry, preaching that we have a whole, it's actually one devotee who's doing it. His name is Chandrasekhar Prabhu, and he preaches to prison inmates. He writes them letters. And he's old school and he likes to keep it personal, so he writes them handwritten emails. Sorry, letters. Handwritten letters, and he doesn't do emails. Although you can send emails, but he writes handwritten letters and he sends them books, and they don't have ability to buy books. So it's another good place where one can sponsor book distribution. And this is a good thing, actually. Someday when we have a little more manpower, this is one thing we would also like to do, is to go and conduct preaching programs in the prison, where we make them chant, we give them prasadam, we you know yeah, we've we've seen there are some devotees who come from that too. Yeah. Is that okay? All right. Anything else? Anything else? Anybody has anything else? Yes, Prabhu. Where's the mic? Oh, maybe the
I-
camera could be
If
turned
the
around.
question was a matter of how do we muster up enough compassion,
Yes.
if that was the question,
That, yeah, that was also part of the question, I
well,
believe. Yeah.
I mean, you answered it perfectly well. But I just wanted to mention that to remember, it's the duty of the unfortunate to make the fortunate it's duty of the fortunate to make the unfortunate fortunate. Prabhupada said. So we were once all unfortunate,
Right.
and if you might not have done abominable things that much, Dad, in this lifetime, but in previous lifetimes, you've probably done worse.
Hmm.
And some saintly person came along and helped us out,
Picked us
helped
up.
us evolve to where we are now.
Jai.
So it's a good concept. That's how I think of when I think of that situation, and helps me a lot.
Oh, that's
And
a
even
great
even
one.
the
Yeah.
greatest saints, they consider themselves the lowest of the low. So when we see something, the right consciousness would be, I'm even lower.
What is that? Every saint has a past,
Yeah,
and
every sinner has a future.
every sinner has a future. That's a good one, and it perfectly applies with our philosophy. Every saint had a past, and that's again inspirational stories we find from the Bhagavatam, like Narada Muni. Narada Muni was previously, born as a child of in a low caste. He didn't even know who his father was, and that was Narada Muni. Means you understand. He, child doesn't know who his father was, and you understand. You know, so that was Narada Muni. Now Narada Muni is one of the acharyas in our sampradaya, and Narada Muni is, also, regarded as he's one of the greatest devotees to ever exist. Very close to Krishna, and so much connected with the Lord's pastimes. So Narada Muni also, he was but that was, in a previous lifetime, and he narrates that story of how he was, you know, how he achieved the mercy of devotees, and how he, became Krishna conscious. So that's a very good point. That all of us, actually, that's true. We have done everything possible. We have been in every species of life. You look at any species, look at some worm. We may be disgusted. You may look at a cockroach and you may be very appalled, or you're looking at a spider and you don't like it. But remember, we were once that spider. That very species too. Because we've been in this material world since time immemorial. So we've been through it all. That's a great meditation to keep. Thank you, Prabhu. Anything else? Yes, Mata.
Hello? Yeah. So you said the body of a Brahmana is different from a dog eater, right?
Right.
in terms of consciousness or knowledge, it may be different, but how is the body different? I thought the body is the same. Like what it is made up of is the same, right? Even though the knowledge or consciousness may be different.
So I mean, you see, when you look at things from Shastra Chakshusha, right? You will find that some people naturally they're more passionate in nature. They're more they do things quicker. They tend to be, for instance, they may be interested in more physical activities than, and some people are generally more inclined towards more what you could call as I don't know, indoor activities like reading or cooking or something like this. So different people have different inclinations, and therefore these bodies are different in the sense that bodies are different because Srila Prabhupada is defining bodies in terms of the three modes of material nature. And so even though a dog eater is a human being and falls within the 400,000 species of human beings, the Brahmana is a different subspecies of human beings than a dog eater. But through the culture of Krishna consciousness, both of them can attain the supreme destination. That is the point. But in terms of what mode of material nature one is influenced, what mode of material nature one is born with, that creates the difference in the body. So Prabhupada is not speaking in terms of the material elements such as earth, water, fire, air, ether. That for all human beings may be more or less the same. It will be different between us and a fish, for instance, or from us and a bird. Birds' bones are hollow because that's how they can fly. It keeps them light. Our bones are not hollow. If our bones are hollow, then you have a very serious problem. It's actually a serious problem. The bones are weak inside, and their bones break. It's called it's a severe deficiency syndrome. I forget what it's called. Anyways, so that's not the difference that Srila Prabhupada is speaking of in this purport. He's speaking of the modes of material nature. Is that okay? Anything else? Anybody has anything? Yes. You had something, Isaac? Done? Okay. Yeah.
In regards, it's just a quick comment. I think it was Bhakti Siddhanta that said, like if all these literatures were destroyed, none of them existed anymore. He was saying like you could take just one verse and that would be Adi 4.165.
Oh, you said one verse. I was
Yeah.
I was a little fuzzy. I knew it was Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Mhm.
I didn't know it was just one verse. Oh yeah, it is one verse. Is it? That's what is that? Oh my God, what's the word?
Jiva Swarupa Hai Krishna
No,
Nityadas.
not that verse.
The desire.
Yeah. Atmendriya priti vancha tare bale kam krishnendriya priti cha dhare premanam. That the desire to satisfy one's own senses is called kama, lust. And the desire to serve the senses of Krishna is called prema, love. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur revealed that this one verse contains the sum and substance of all knowledge that is found in this world. Every single knowledge that's found in this world, this one verse is sum and substance. And if this one verse were to exist, everything else can be reproduced. There's a lot that could be said about that verse, but yeah. Thank you for that. Okay. Anything else? Yes. Oh, it's 2:00. Okay. Is it quick? Is it a question or a comment? Question. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to stop because I didn't see it was 2:00. Okay. Maybe you can ask me later. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So now we will teach you